Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Aloha to all of you who are from Hawaii, and welcome to the 2019, I almost got a year ahead of myself, the 2019 Alliance for Community Media West Region Conference and our trade show. I want to thank our vendors. We've got a great number of vendors down below. Make sure you stop and spend time with them. Not only do I want you to spend time with them, I want you to spend your money with them. There's a great amount of capital dollars at stake here, and these folks are more than willing to take it, and they've got great equipment for you. We've got a couple of days of really fun and exciting workshops and events for everybody, and I hope that you're in tune with all of that. Just one real quick housekeeping note. If you're expecting to go out into the gardens for the lunch events, they have been moved, and we will hold them at the Miramar, which is where you had your breakfast. So that will be the lunch location both today and tomorrow, and great view from up there. Let's see, tonight we will have a, weather permitting, wonderful cruise around the harbor and the dock. We're fortunate enough to have the dock adjacent to the hotel to be the pickup spot. So be there at 5:30 or earlier, get on board, and hopefully we will have a very pleasant cruise around the harbor. And they said by that time the clouds will be gone, it'll be a sunny evening, and the weather will be calm, and the sun will be out tonight, for sure. We've got a really wonderful opening plenary panel about the future of our organizations, where we're going, and how we transition. But before we can get to that, I really want to acknowledge and thank our friends at PadNet and their incredible team for hosting us at this great facility. Long Beach is a wonderful town. I hope you guys have a chance to wander around a little bit and find out some of the exciting and fun things to do here. But with that in mind, I'd like to bring up the guy who leads the charge here and introduce a couple of very special guests as we open this conference. I'd like Darick Simpson, please come up. And I hope everybody had a good time last night at his facility. That was really one of the best receptions we've ever had. Darick, thank you so much. It's really good to be here in Long Beach.
Good morning, everyone. We were excited to have you last night, and you got a taste of Naples Rib Company, which is one of the favorites around town. I'm excited to see you this morning, and just my luck, the last time we hosted a conference, it rained. It was the first time in 10 years we had rain, and it happened that week. And thank you for coming and bringing more rain. But I understand, according to Andrea, that it will be all gone by the time that we board tonight. So you'll have a great time, and you'll see our beautiful city. I have the honor and the pleasure of introducing someone who's a colleague in the community, but he's also a leader in this community that I respect because of his innovative ideas and his passion for our city. And he was our vice mayor, and he is the councilman of the 9th District. Where you were last night was the 9th District of Long Beach. It's the very top of our city. You're currently sitting in the very bottom of the city, so it's the two extremes. But he's someone that's making big things happen for our city, and I'm sure someday on a grander stage. But help me welcome our councilman of the 9th Council District here in Long Beach, Councilman Rex Richardson.
Good morning.
Good morning.
You know, as I walked in this morning and saw all the different signs, the nameplates, and met all the different folks, I learned so many acronyms: PEG, PEG, ACM, PadNet, SCAN, LBCAP. So it's an alphabet soup of community media here. So I'm certainly here, happy to welcome you this morning to the city of Long Beach. Just to tell you a little bit about the city, just a show of hands, how many people are already familiar with Long Beach? Okay, and how many people are not familiar with Long Beach? Okay, so it's about half and half. So let me give you a little breakdown of the city that we love and the city that is proud to host you. We're the 36th largest city in the United States. Many people may not know that, but we're larger than cities like St. Louis. We're larger than Atlanta. We're larger than Miami. Our Port of Long Beach, which you'll see a tour of that this evening. It's the largest and cleanest port in the United States. Combined with Los Angeles, 43% of all trade in the United States comes through our combined seaports. So, you know, if you look at your iPhone, how many of you have an iPhone? You're welcome. You're welcome. Wouldn't be possible without the hardworking staff at the Port of Long Beach and the hardworking folks at the ILWU. You're here at the beautiful Hotel Maya. This is, you know, it's a great establishment. It's one of my favorite hotels to have meetings, and it's a hotel that really takes care of its workers. So let's just make sure we take a moment and just acknowledge all of the hardworking staff at Hotel Maya. Let's hear it for them. Now, I know you have a really busy agenda. If you get some time away, you've got about 60 restaurants just in this square mile radius. So there's a lot to see and a lot to do. Downtown Long Beach is beautiful. It's the only downtown on the waterfront between San Diego and San Francisco. So there's a lot to do. We're making major investments into our pedestrian infrastructure, our mobility, multimodality. You won't be able to engage very much if it starts raining. So you may be able to see some things, but you may not be able to use it. You know, I have to just say that community media is incredibly important. It's something that we take very seriously here in Long Beach. You know, I'm honored to call Darick Simpson a friend and a mentor, and I'm just amazed at the things that he's able to do to really capture those stories that are sometimes are slip through the seams of our broader media spectrum, and he's able to engage youth into the storytelling and teach them skills, and it's an amazing model. I'm sure you got to see some of that last night, and I'm just fortunate to have his center in my district. And so that's why I'm not surprised that he's up for so many awards here PatNet is up for so many awards here at the conference. We also have an amazing Long Beach TV, which Long Beach TV is award-winning. Our Long Beach TV network is award-winning as well. And I gotta tell you, these folks love getting out there and telling those stories in the neighborhood of the parks that are opening and the great things we're doing around homelessness and the things that we're doing around economic inclusion. And that's why they won 8-star awards last year. So really proud of the best-in-class Long Beach TV station that we have here in our city. So I wanted to just take that moment to recognize two of our superstars here, but also make sure that all of you feel welcome. Feel free to, check out our Long Beach Convention and Visitors Bureau. A lot of resources for you. Our Aquarium of the Pacific, our downtown and the waterfront. Plenty of great things to see. Thanks a lot and have a great day. Go Long Beach.
I guess we're ready to launch. Jay, are we ready to launch? All right, we're launching. This morning, we're going to kind of kick the conference off with 3 people. I've known 2 of them for a very, very long time, those 2 guys down there in the end, and Marty for not so long, but they've all are just great friends, and they all have a lot of wonderful things to share with you. Our field right now, at least we feel like we're facing a lot of instability. We have rapid changes in technology. We have rapid changes in the way people view and consume media, okay? We have certainly an unstable regulatory environment with what's going on at the FCC. We have a Supreme Court case out there that could potentially call a halt to all access channels. And we have, because of all of those things, we really need to figure out how we're going to move forward, how we're going to navigate the new landscape. And that's what we're going to talk about this morning, because there's some people who are doing it right now. These 3 gentlemen all have been doing some really incredibly creative things to help take their communities or the communities that they work with, all right, to the next step of financial stability, to the next step of using media and video to serve their communities and stay true to the mission. So with that, what I want to do is first kind of give you a sense of how we're going to do this session this morning. Although I like to have things interactive the whole way through, I think to make sure everybody gets to do their presentation. What we're going to do is we'll start with Marty, then we're going to go to Steve, then we're going to go to Alan. We may have a little conversation in between as they're doing their presentations. We'll save your questions to the end. We'll make sure you have plenty of time for questions. And with that, let me introduce each of our speakers, because some of you may not know all of these guys. On my left, I didn't have enough coffee this morning. All right. On my left is Marty Jones. He's the CEO of Metro East in Gresham, Oregon. And Marty started out in Access as a teenager in Columbus, Ohio. And then he sort of went to Hollywood, all right? He has been producing and acquiring theatrical content for release, broadcast, and streaming. He's produced feature films like Asunder, For Real, Nothing to Lose, and he's done specials and national TV sitcoms. He's worked with Chrysler, Jeep, Chevrolet, and Turner, Time Warner, and Grosch Beer. But the important thing now is he is taking Metro East to, which has always been a great media center, to a level that's unbelievable. And he is doing some wonderful things in partnership with the cities in his area to work with people in the community who do not necessarily have access to the tools of media and do not have access to the skills to effectively use those tools to better themselves. So Marty's going to talk to us about that. Then we're going to go Steve, and I'm going to kind of lead the introductions to each time when we go to this. So I'm going to let you roll, Marty.
Thank you, Sue. Good morning, everybody. It's great to be back in my old stomping grounds. I used to live about 5 miles from here. Not Long Beach, Darick, but next door in Carson. So, yeah, I lived here for 11 years, you know, and what she said is true. One of the first things I did as a kid in Columbus, Ohio, is I worked with 3 nonprofits. One still exists, the National Black Programming Consortium, and it's now called Black Public Media. They do all of the funding for PBS. The other was a Community Film Association, and the other one was Access Columbus. And so we would use public access to publicize the things that we were doing with these other nonprofits. And so to have an opportunity to come back to this world and to, you know, bring some of the things I've learned along the way have been really fun. So I also learned in my travels when I lived in Virginia from an old preacher, blessed are the brief, for they shall be invited back. So I'm going to be brief. I'm going to run through these slides really quickly because question and answers are really important. But if we could just do a quick census, how many of you work at a full PEG center by raise of hands? Okay, great. How many of you are in leadership at your centers? Trustees? Any trustees, board members? Okay, we got one. Okay, great. That just helps me to sort of know who's in the room. How many executive directors or CEOs? Okay, those are the people. We've got bottles of alcohol for each of you. I was talking to my new director of finance and all this stuff in the future. It's budget season and the future and the vision. And she's like, Marty, I just need to worry about the budget. And I was like, okay, this is a step forward for a moment. So leave your budgets, leave your city councils, leave your cable commission behind, and I'll just share with you some of the things that we've been doing. We all have one of these things, right? We have a mission. It's the why we exist. Hopefully, if you don't have one, soon you will have one, which is your vision, that thing that you aspire to. It's not in your hands yet, but you want to go there. With all the work that we've been doing with Metro East, we're 35 years old this year. I'm only the 3rd CEO. Many of you know my predecessor, the great and a Buske award-winning Rob Brading, who's become a dear friend of mine. We want to have a vision, but even with all the rebranding and all the things that I'm showing you here, we still haven't gotten to that vision statement yet, but I think we're on the precipice of that. Cable, it's no longer the dominant form of entertainment. Netflix beat it. There are more Netflix subscribers than there are cable subscribers. You know, I just got a sneak preview of my revenue projections for next year. It's another big drop. I don't like what I'm seeing, but I knew what I was getting into when I took the job 3 years ago. Little fun fact, in 2017, Netflix spent $8 billion on 1,000 hours of original content. In 2017, Metro East created 1,912 hours of original content. We did not have $8 billion. That just shows you the power of community media. You know, Gresham's the 4th largest city in Portland, and Oregon, it's right next to Portland. We have 5 cities, including Multnomah County, which is Portland. And so we have a lot of the population there, but you know, it's still a small town and of 100 and some thousand people in our actual city. To have that much content is pretty cool. Looking toward the future, looking beyond what's on cable television. Cable is really important. Our money comes from there. I love that we're on television. I don't think as an industry we use our bully pulpit to our advantage. We could do a lot more self-promotion on our channels than we do. That being said, one of the things we're looking at is moving toward a progressive web app. It's different than a website in the sense that it looks and feels like a website, but the functionality, the things you can do offline, pushing notifications, all of the infrastructure that happens in the background, that's where we're going. I'm hoping that over the next few days I can convince some of you to maybe come on board with us, because I think we're going to have an opportunity to share content, to do streaming, and to be more connected and be able to find our viewers. You know, this technology that Steve's going to be talking about over the top. We need to be ready for this non-cable future. So also continuing education and maybe even interactive live government meetings is something that we could aspire to with this kind of technology with a web app. Google it if you haven't, if you don't know what it is. It's a fascinating thing. It's something I've just come to know in the last 6 months. Our major business and goals are to tell our story. You know, we've been the best kept secret in Gresham for years, and you'll see how we've been changing that. One of my superstar staff members went to high school and lived a mile from the studio, lived in the community. She's actually from Long Beach, lived in the community for 12 years, didn't know Metro East existed. Shame on us. Shame on us. And so that's been my big thing now, is to make sure that the community knows that we're there and to make sure that they're welcome. And with our rebranding of the building, I just met, literally last week, 7 new members, several of them young men of color, and I was just happy to see them. I just come back from South Africa. I live in Portland, which is the whitest city in America. So I was halfway through my trip in South Africa, and I was like, I haven't seen any white people yet. What's going on? So it was interesting to see myself in the building, and I just talked to the guys and said, why are you here? And they said, well, we saw your building, and we walked inside. It was that simple. You know, we have really low-hanging fruit. So promote yourselves and be proud of what we do.
So what did you do to rebrand your building? I'm just curious.
We wrapped it. I'm going to show you.
Okay, cool.
We have 57 windows, and we wrapped it, and we put lights on our building. You know, it's like little stuff. The fee for service is a big area of growth for us. If you're not doing that, all the nonprofits that you know, you can help them with video, even if you're not a big center. And one of the criticisms I got last year speaking was, make sure you say things that help all size centers, not just people that are, you know, bigger like Metro East. Everything you're seeing here is scalable, and I can, you know, answer questions and give you ideas either here or offline. But that's been our greatest area of growth, is our fee for service. And what we realized, we have so many nonprofits coming through that we weren't marketing ourselves to the 100 nonprofits that are showcased on our community show. So we started doing that, and guess what? We've turned a lot of them into paying customers. Increased support for your fundraising is important. One of the things that we did with our community work and embracing digital equity and inclusion, and I'm speaking about this in the next first workshop, our work with digital equity and inclusion has been paramount to our fundraising. It's really spoken and given us relevance to the major funders in the area, and we've done over $200,000 in fundraising in the last 2 years. Before that, we weren't doing any fundraising. We were all living off of mailbox money.
What's mailbox money?
You know, that franchise tax, you know,
Okay.
the big check that comes in once a quarter, or in that case 2, one for operations, one for capital.
Mm-hmm.
That's what we were living off of. And everybody, and it was like, so my job was like, we've been living in mom and dad's basement for 33 years. My job was to at least get us over the garage. I think we're down the street right now, but the crazy thing is that all the cool stuff that's happening with the increased revenue, our base, though, is eroding faster than we can build the new stuff. So you've got to really jump into this really quickly. I'd be remiss if I didn't say come to Portland this summer. New Paths is the theme of the national conference. I'm glad to be one of the co-chairs. Alan and Deb and Justin from Open Signal and Melody and Jerry from McMinnville, everybody. We're waiting and eager to give you a great experience, and Oregon is just incredible in July. This is our pop-up. We went to an abandoned building in an area that is the #1 redevelopment area for the city of Gresham. It's the most diverse zip code in the entire state of Oregon. Over 100 languages and dialects are spoken in the homes of elementary school-aged children. The population is very young. It's a lot of refugees and immigrants. And we had a hard time breaking into this community. I'll talk about it because of trust issues. The building that we were in used to be a police precinct. A little thing called DACA was going away. And there was a hate crime across the street. But as we got to know the people in the community and built trust, we were able to put together a program that showcased our DIY, or digital inclusion in youth. And once we broke through to some of the influencers, like my friend Batula in the Somali community, she was like E.F. Hutton. Everything changed. We had a line out the door. It was a beautiful thing. This is what it's going to eventually look like. It's an abandoned plot of land right now. We're just a piece of it. This is the city and a private developer putting this together. And the goal here is to stop gentrification. There's like over 50 community meetings. The partnerships and the people that are going to be in this complex. To your right is the affordable housing. To the left is an office building where the community college, WorkSource, us, small business development, and others are going to be located.
Quick question for you. How did you find out about this and get sort of linked with, I guess, the city on this project?
That was probably the coolest thing about the job, was that this had just been announced. And as I researched it, I got really excited, and when I got a chance to meet Rob, he told me about it, and that was about it. We knew that this thing was going to happen. It was going to take a few years to raise the money, and so what we did was we went to the spot, like my second month on the job, sat there on a park bench for 3 hours and just watched the neighborhood. And there was just this one building that was left standing that they didn't tear down. Found out that the city owned it. I went to the city, made them an offer they couldn't refuse, said we're going to put $100,000 in from our capital money to seed this project. And it's basically like, turning a farm into a subdivision, right? Nobody believes that it's going to be any good, and then you put the model home up, and then people get excited and can see the potential. So that's in essence what we did. We made the model home, and we used $100,000. And I know it's a lot of money for some centers, but we had some money that we hadn't spent yet because, we had all of our technology, cameras and stuff, and we rediverted it to this, and it was one of the best things we've ever done.
So heads up, one of the workshops after this, Marty's going to go into a lot of depth about this particular project, but we wanted to tease it a little bit here because it's a really important part of what's going on. Go.
Thank you. And I'm going to wrap it up quickly. We have again, using our facilities, I've brought in some friends. Darren Scott's a director who's done 3, studio films in the last year. He's working on, lower budget direct-to-video Netflix premieres, but he's got a wealth of experience. We did a master class. We videotaped it. We sold 50 seats at like $150, and now we're launching it as an online platform. And it's very user-friendly. Again, we're going to make it available to all ACM members at a preferential rate. VR, immersive storytelling, something we've all got to be paying attention to. We're working with a gentleman named Alton Glass, who happens to be based here in LA, and he is doing just some wonderful work in this area and connecting digital equity and inclusion with this technology. The power of empathy and the power of purpose in the world of technology has been really, really great, and a small family foundation gave us $25,000 to start that project. We also invested in an app called BidClip, so you can go check it out, bidclipz.com. And this is a media sharing site where content makers can control their content and sell directly to consumers. So it's like Patreon and YouTube together with a monetary concept. It's still in its beta, but it's a pretty cool prospect. The last thing I would say is that we reached out to people in the community using the old PBS model. Again, we have a bully pulpit. We have a show that's been on the air for 20 years. We were about to shoot our 1,000th episode, and I freaked out when I learned that, because I was in Hollywood for 20 years. I never worked on a show that made it to 1,000 episodes. And, The Simpsons has been on for 35 years and hasn't even done 700 episodes yet. So we in Gresham, Oregon created a show called Community Hotline that showcases 100 nonprofits a year, and we weren't selling any sponsorships. So all these people are now paid sponsors. We have a car that Steve cracked on when he came to Portland, my little dune buggy. We're connected with the newspaper, furniture, gyms, online companies, and they're doing cash and in-kind with us. Not a lot of money here, like my friends at PBS, but it's getting there. And so I encourage you to go out and ask people to support you. These are some of the foundational grants that we've received. The one to note here is the Collins Foundation. In Oregon, there's like the big three, and when you get through to one of them, that's what really matters. And when we broke through to them, that got people's attention. So now foundations are calling us, and they're visiting, and they're looking at what we're doing. This is what the Rockwood DIY looks like from the outside, and this was our first experiment with wrapping a building. Again, this place had been the cop shop, right? The people did, everybody avoided this side of the street. So we wanted to make it warm and welcoming, and that's about half the building. It's an 8,000 square foot building. We have half of it. We've got a recording studio in here, and then just empty rooms, basically, where people can gather. And then this is what we did to our headquarters. So we have a really beautiful facility. We've been in this building for 15 years. It was getting long in the tooth, and so we updated our carpeting, but our whole look has changed. I've got some other pictures that I can show, but it's warm and welcoming. Those signs light up at night. People know who we are, that there's something creative going on here, and that's what we wanted to do. We wanted to be intentionally creative. So that's my time. Questions are later. I'm going to take this offline for a second and get Steve.
In the meantime, I'll do a few introductions here for Steve, so you guys can do the media flip. Gee, Steve, you've been around doing this a long time too, huh? Yeah. Anybody in the room remember Rogers Cable? Oh, okay, we have a few. Well, I'm going to start backwards rather than forwards, Steve. Steve was a program manager for Cox and Rogers Cable and some Southern California systems a few years ago. Okay?
Yeah, quite a bit.
He was also the first executive director of what is now Arlington Independent Media in Arlington County, Virginia. He is currently the president of Cablecast Community Media. He's worked in sales and business development for quite a number of technology startups. He's focused on cable, including, Nave Network, Broadway TV Network. He was the director of sales for USA Network. And Steve's kind of worked in this field from the bottom up, from working in the sort of local programming side of it, and then moving over into the technology side. And with that, if you guys are ready, I'm going to turn it over to you, okay?
So we're almost there. Hello, everybody. Southern California a long time ago. And Rogers Cable, and Rogers Cable was kind of refreshing. It was a Canadian company, and their philosophy was that community programming basically enhanced everything that they were doing. And so it wasn't really, back then it wasn't really a fight. Of course things change when ownership changes, and but anyway, it was a great place to learn and experience community and media. So who moved my cheese? Those of you who are my age or a little bit younger, there was this book that was out, and it was called Who Moved My Cheese? And it's basically, the moral of the story is that if somebody moves your cheese, you can't just wait for the cheese to come back. You have to go find a new source of cheese. And you can apply it in a lot of different ways. So anyway, and there's a lot of changes that are happening in the industry. Like for example, back when I was starting out, there were just a few channels on cable TV, and your access channel was right there. It was really easy to navigate to. It wasn't buried up in the hundreds, and so that's changed. The other thing that's changed is it's not just Netflix. And it's not just Google Prime or Amazon Prime, but they have these things that are called skinny bundles, and that's also siphoning away subscribers. still makes money for the cable operator, of course, but it doesn't help you in terms of the franchise fees that you collect because it's all internet delivered. So those things that were on the screen there, those are called virtual multi-channel video providers, and it's growing, which is why you're seeing your revenues decreasing. It went from 77.4 to 81.3% in just one year. And then in terms of trending, it's even getting worse, in that the people that are turning to these virtual channels and the people that are spending time on their phone are the younger people, so unless there's change along with the people that you're trying to serve and work with, if you don't change, it's just going to be all older people that you're talking to, because they're the ones that are just more staying in place. And as you can see from the graph here, the ages 18 to 29, I mean 61% of them use online streaming as their primary way of watching television. And then, of course, there's all these other distractions for everybody, but especially the younger people. Snapchat, Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, Twitch, video games, the internet. All those things didn't exist 30 years ago, and now they're everywhere. And then, other trends that are happening. So over the last, I don't know how many years, I mean, there's tremendous broadcast television consolidation. There's radio consolidation, like the local radio station is now owned by some conglomerate that's just sending the same content to every single station. And local newspapers are just disappearing, basically, or they go down to like 3 pages. Actually, so I grew up in Southern California, and there was a paper in where I lived. It was called the Daily Pilot, and it came every day. And so I just the other day I opened up the Times, LA Times, and the Daily Pilot is a weekly that's like 4 pages long, and that's happening throughout the country, and it's very real. But with all these changes, as bad as they are, there's also a lot of opportunity. The cost of channel operations has gone way down. The ways you distribute content or can distribute content have increased. There's brand new channels of communication. The cost of production equipment is, again, like over the last 30 years, we've all seen that, it's like a fraction of what it was. And then the new devices that are out there, it's pretty incredible what exists if you can harness it. So I work for a company, and we make station automation and playout equipment. But again, back in the day, that just consisted of putting tapes in in VCRs and playing on a linear channel, and that's all that happened. But now, our company and the other companies that are here, we play out content on the channel, we stream the content on the internet, we offer content on demand on the internet. A number of us also offer the content over the top, basically. So to a Fire Stick or Apple TV or Roku in the home, we do all of that. And then you can also schedule streams from remote locations that are delivered via the public internet or bonded cellular. So these are all new things that you can take advantage of.
Let's ask a quick question here, because
Sure.
we have time. Go through each of those distribution technologies, and we'll have people raise their hand if they're doing it. I'm just really curious.
Yeah, that's a good. So, all right. So channel playout, everybody's doing that.
Okay.
I'm sure. All right. Who's streaming live on the internet? Oh,
Okay.
that's good. Who's offering their content on demand on the internet?
Pretty good.
Who is using over the top, like to Roku and Apple TV? Much smaller. Who is optimizing their streams for mobile devices? Again, less. And then who's using this new technology to take signals from remote locations back into your head end? Yeah. So there's a lot. There's a lot of room for technology adoption.
Exactly.
Okay. So the over to the top, which did not get a lot of hands, it's I don't know. I think it's kind of a game-changing experience in that, having experienced it myself, you can sit down in your living room, you can navigate directly to the channel that you want. You can watch it in high definition. You can watch it on demand. You can pause it. You have all the controls that the cable company gives to HBO and any of the networks that they carry. And so it changes the viewing experience, I think. Went over all this stuff here. And then you can also stream it. You can also stream it live that way as well. So your channel can be live and on demand over the top. So just as an illustration, the cool thing about like whether it's Apple TV, Roku, Fire, is that you select the apps that you want to look at. And so if your community puts your channel there, you're not going to be buried at channel number 573 with no access to the guide. You're on this guide. If you've reached that community member, they sit down, they see you, they can open you up. And then this is an example of what that experience is like. And so you can see this. So you would sit down. You basically click on Cablecast in our case, or CMAC, and then you're presented with the 3 live streams, and you're presented with whatever video on demand content that you want to share with the community. The production technology has changed drastically. Cameras are less expensive and better. Lighting, a lot less expensive. So where was I? So the technology is changing, and I think I'm going to go right to the next slide, which you have to hit play. So this is a example on what a phone can do, basically.
We're playing video now.
Actually, let me ask a question. How many out here are using cellular phones for production? Few. That's cool. We can go to the next slide. So the next slide is similar. This is with an iPhone, I just saw that actually. There have been a couple of feature-length movies. Actually, Steven Soderbergh, he just shot his last movie completely on an iPhone. Two of them? So this is a combination of an iPhone, and then how many people have used a gimbal? A little bit more. So the technology is pretty amazing. So you can take the phone, fantastic resolution, probably better than what we had as dedicated video cameras 30 years ago. Way better. And then with this gimbal technology, it stabilizes everything. It's like you're shooting with a tripod, but you're not. You're walking, you're running, you're doing whatever. So again, just an example of technology. You can go to the next one. So then I'm plugging a company here, just because I think the technology is so amazing. Sling Studio, and so they have this little box, just as an example of the technology. They have a little box that it's $1,000 or $2,000, and then you can take a sending device and put it on your phone or a small digital camera, and you basically create an instant studio, and it's its own Wi-Fi hotspot. It goes 300 feet, so you could cover a basketball game or a football game or a town meeting with this little device that you put on your backpack. Again, I'm not plugging them. I'm just, the point is to try to embrace the new technology that is really, really inexpensive and very capable. So I mean, that is, what's the point? I mean, the production technology is less expensive. It's available. You know, with this technology, there's so many more ways to produce content. There's so many more opportunities to get people in the community involved. I mean, again, back in the day, you had to go to an access center if you wanted to produce something, because that was where the equipment is. Now the equipment and the technology is everywhere. Your challenge, basically, is to get involvement, which has always been the challenge in access, really. But now it's, you know, it is the main challenge because anybody can produce. And again, the way that you can distribute content's only limited by your imagination. And then the need out there has never been greater with all the media consolidation and the lack of local voices. This is tremendous opportunity to fill a void. That's it. Thanks.
Could somebody try to get a fan, Jay or somebody from the hotel? It would be good to get a fan in here because the smell is pretty overwhelming for, I'm sure, for some.
Marty, are we going to connect me or are you going to drive it for
You
us?
guys are off from here.
All right. So there, I think now we're going to switch over our media to our next presenter. And our next presenter is Alan Bushong. Alan's been involved, well, he's actually been in Salem as the executive director since 1989 in Salem, Oregon. And prior to that, he spent 11 years at Austin Community Television. So Alan's kind of seen a lot last while. But, you know, I think the key here is to remember that we have to continue to move forward. I mean, with Marty, you saw a solid, well-run community media center looking for the next pieces for financial stability, for serving the population, for serving the community, for staying true to mission, okay? With what Steve's been telling you about, there are a lot of new media opportunities, a lot of new technology opportunities out there, and some of you are taking advantage of some of them. Some of you are taking advantage of all, but not a lot of you are taking advantage of all of them. So as we navigate where we're going in the future and how we're effectively serving our communities, we need to sort of take in how can we use technology more effectively, listen to our community, serve that community by making the training, the resources, whatever they need, the distribution available for them. What Alan's going to be sharing with us is what their experience is at Capital Community Television. Again, a community media center that's been around for a few years, okay? But they are also going through a strategic re-envisioning process and trying to move to the next, I don't even say plateau, just continuing moving up the steps of growth and evolution. So Alan, you want to tell us a little bit about what you're doing?
Yeah, thanks. I think the first thing I have to do is I have to accept some responsibility for the weather here. Our daughter's an Occidental grad. She invited us to go to the 2006 Rose Bowl Festival Parade on New Year's Day. It hadn't rained in 54 years, and it rained 4 inches that day. And we sat in the parade for all 4 inches, and I can tell you that the floats look a lot better on dry days than on 4-inch rainfall days. So PadNet, we're going to help share the blame. CCTV indeed has been 29 years in Salem, Oregon, and I was hired to start CCTV. So I've been there all of it. The next slide is the key to public. I want to revisit what Darick Koning said. Darick said that we were about tools, tech training, tools, and transmission. And apparently we really liked it because we hit those points twice. But he also said, know your community, know your audience, and know your message. And by knowing our community, we know that tools, training, and transmission is only a part of what we need to do in the future. Changes in the past year alone, and maybe you have something like this. We've lost more than 30 series programs. People are more interested in YouTube and cable channels. Yeah, you can play that on your channel if you want to, we hear. They want to monetize, and we allow monetization on YouTube. Primarily use social media to communicate with us. We get hardly any communications other than on social media. And when the city of Salem started putting city council meetings on Facebook, they had 20 times as many people viewing the meetings on Facebook as on YouTube, although a lot of those were short viewers. So we started listening to our governments on that, and they said, in the second city council meeting, they had 88 people respond. And some of those people may have been questioning the lineage of some of the councilors, but by and large, they thought it was real positive to have 88 people engaged enough to respond. So how are we known in the community? And I'm going to go forward to the second one, which has a little bit of a background. You can see that in many ways we're doing the same things we were doing in 1991. And in fact, the first 13 years we were almost identical as an organization. And this is going to be posted, so I'm not going to spend a huge amount of time on these. This is what PEG centers do. But what you see now is what we're doing now and what we've added. Much more music programming, more churches, although we've had a drop off there, a lot more Spanish language programming, social media, YouTube presence, which was 681,000 hits 2 years ago, and now is something like 1,100,000 hits on our YouTube. There are more public shows, and we're putting content online with our newspaper, the Statesman Journal. So what changes have taken place, and what are we needing to react to? Again, 13 years, pretty much the same. Then we started streaming. Then we brought in nonlinear editing. Now, a lot of people came to us for editing when they didn't want to buy an $18,000 DVC Pro editing system. If Eric is here, I know he has one, right? But nobody else has one. But when it goes computerized, we were no longer nearly as important for editing. Then the city of Salem asked us and requested that we apply for an LPFM radio license. You sit on the San Andreas fault here, and sorry, but it's just kind of a weakling as faults go, because we're on the Cascadia subduction zone fault line. And we could be, for instance, something as big as a 9.3 or 9.4. And for the city of Salem, if something really bad happens, radio is going to be the only way to reach people at the beginning. They might get cell phone towers up, but landline communications are going to be snapped. 2007, we created a YouTube channel. 2008, we started figuring out the nonprofits weren't doing anything, so we just started producing for them. And as you start to see this, what we're doing, we're gravitating away from just strictly tools, training, and transmission into something which we thought was bad news, but might actually be the springboard along what Marty's doing is for fee-based services, and some of that we've already started. In 2009, we moved to a terrific news center. If you've been there, you know it's a terrific news center. It does a lot of things. 2012, you start to see we're having more tail off. Then we applied for a full power license. The public showed around 2014. Most important thing here is we were designated as a joint information center for the city of Salem and Marion County. We're an integral part of their emergency information planning and communications, especially putting an FM radio station in, especially because we're going to have an emergency tower on our building in case we're separated from our transmitter tower 6.2 miles away. We started really pumping. We said, where are we unique? We got 2 studios. There's only one other studio as good as ours in town. We started a partnership with Corbin University to teach at our space. That's a little bit weak, and we need to get that going again. Again, YouTube channel up, sharing content. 2016, our full power license was granted. We have until November this year to get it active. We're planning an August 3rd launch. So 2007.
I want to ask a question here, just to kind of tail in on a little bit on what you're talking about. So how many people here operate a low power FM radio? Okay. How about full power? One of the things that's interesting about what Alan is talking about, and I don't want it to go zipping by because you're going real fast, Alan. Okay. Is this opportunity? I just talked to somebody 2 days ago. And it's a school, it has a full power FM radio license, they're discontinuing the curriculum in the school. And the school's trying to figure out whether they just turn the license back in. And there's a community media center in that community. Keep your tentacles and your ears open for opportunities like this, because I think more of them may be popping up. I mean, the way Grand Rapids Community Media, the CMC there, which is probably the first community media center in the country that operated a full power FM radio license. That's how they got it 30 years ago, was because their school had the license, the curriculum was ending, the superintendent didn't know what to do with it. So as we look at where we're going in the future and sort of navigating the new media horizon, don't be afraid of adding technologies like FM radio, because they simply extend the reach and the level of service. And I think what Alan is doing is jumping on the opportunity. So I'm going to bounce it back over here. I just wanted folks to sort of think a little bit about
I'm
that.
going to pause on that a little bit. I'm going fast because there's 3 of us presenting, and I want you to get to your next session too. In 2018, we purchased 1,700 square feet adjacent to our space, and we're going to put a multimedia center in there. And it's going to also be set up so in case something really bad happens, one staff member, and it might be me, I got a 4-mile walk to work, if they can get to work, they're going to operate a wing where the city of Salem and Marion County would have radio, television, and the internet all available to them. And we could operate if we had to with just one person. By the way, we timeshare our radio channel with a preeminent Latino group in town, so we'll not only have the ability to reach the home, but we'll reach, right now, 40% of our school district is either Latino or mixed heritage Latino. You would never guess that seeing Salem from outside, but they're going to have programming on, and they're going to be able to help us reach. When we had a water crisis last summer and we had algae blooms and the water was not safe for everybody to drink, it took the city of Salem 3 days to get information out to the Spanish language community. And we're going to be able to do it instantaneously. We also hosted our first film festival, just trying to think of ways to get more people through the door. Marty's doing such good stuff at getting people through the door. And this summer, we'll launch that multimedia wing that includes a full power FM radio signal at 98.3. We just got lucky. Our engineer found a gray zone in Dallas, Oregon, and we're within 25 miles and we can serve it. What we've heard from people, and maybe I've even talked with some of you, is that when you bring in radio, people interested in radio programming, the barrier to participation is lower. You bring in more people, and you get a lot of people that will currently on TV pick up radio, and people that are wanting to do radio that will also pick up TV. And I should say TV as you distribute it, because what I'm going to do now is a little bit off the grid, just briefly, Marty. I'm going to, I don't know what your social media metrics are, but I just want to spend a little bit of time on that. Again, we went up, we have 6,100 videos on YouTube. Average view time 3 minutes and 39 seconds, but views at 1,167,000, up 500,000 from 2 years ago. We have 825 followers on Instagram, 3188 likes on Facebook, a lot of views and a lot of interaction on both of those. Twitter, we have 489 followers, and YouTube, 1,912 subscribers. You may beat the socks off of all of that, and if you do, that's awesome. But this is how we're getting information now. And there are 2 groups that communicate with us, that give us feedback if we're not asking for it. And they're parents and music groups. And that's literally almost all the communication with us.
So I'm kind of curious. One of the things we talked about in our workshop yesterday afternoon was the frustration that people seem to be having, because they can get all the statistics and data with regard to what they do online or over the top, but you can't get anything on how you're doing on cable. Okay, and it's a real, and it kind of makes people kind of disregard or devalue the cable side because you can't get any data. You don't know who's viewing. You don't know how long they're viewing. What was interesting is that one place, and I want to bring this up because it kind of dovetails on a little bit on what you're talking about, Alan, is there's a community media center that decided that they ran a very successful sports show, and they wanted to start promoting it on some of the major networks that are run by the cable operators, CNN, ESPN, et cetera, et cetera. They wanted to buy promos. They wanted to buy ad avail time. And what was interesting is when they went to the sales manager and said, we want to buy some time, they also got a lot of data on viewership of their channel and of all the channels. So they were actually able to back into getting data on their own and getting statistics on their own channel by going in and wanting to do ad buy. And they did want to do an ad buy. And they did an ad buy, okay? So it's sort of interesting. I wanted to throw it out there because it's something I heard somebody did that I thought was really a cool idea, and it worked.
I did it.
You did it too?
Yeah.
And worked really well. And a lot of people just haven't thought about it, but I just thought, to help balance all of this other data we're getting, okay, it sure would be nice to get data and information on how we're doing with our cable channels as well, and that'd be maybe one technique you can use. Alan, I want to tag down to what you're saying, so I want to bounce it back to you now.
Yeah, and I'm going to use that too. So what do we look like and where are we now in the middle of our planning process? One of the things, constant change for the last 14 years, and we think it's going to accelerate. We're also looking at declining franchise fees. Our city and county bring in about $2 million of cable television franchise fees a year, and we get about 800,000 of that. And it's just now started to drop. We've been insulated longer than a lot of other people. But what we're getting between franchise fees and capital funds relates to $5,000 a day. If we were cut off totally to operate the way we are right now, we'd have to bring in $5,000 a day to replace that. So that's what's on our radar screen, how to get there. One of the things that we want to do in our town, because more than 50% of the residents of our town work for government. We're state capital, but only 7% of the population of Oregon. 31% of the people in Salem work for state government. These are Chamber of Commerce figures. They're a little bit old, but I think they're close. 6% work for the city of Salem, 6% for Marion County, and probably between 8 and 10% work for the Salem-Keizer School District. So, to start with, we're not giving up on governments, and in fact, we think we're super valuable to governments right now. Not only that we're helping them get information out in every way that we did at the beginning, but across multiple platforms, but now we're adding radio, and we're a joint information center for emergency programming. We want to be so valuable that if they lost all of that, which means they would lose $1.2 million out of the general fund. And I don't know about your states, but our state is in bad shape on public employee retirement vesting. So a lot of money in local governments going to help fund the retirees who are living very long on very generous plans. My wife's one, I'm not complaining. But so governments are directly, we want, and we're working with them right now to make sure that if there are changes to franchise fees, they will be our anchor funder. How much beyond that? I've started the conversation with our schools about monetizing our services to schools. With nonprofits, we have to be careful because there are local businesses who have for years been working with nonprofits on fee-based services, and they don't want us to have a subsidized unfair competition. But what I said yesterday, I phrased that very poorly. There's a lot of what's happening in our center that we can charge nonprofits for. Plus, we're looking at educational institutions, and one last quirk, and then I'll stop for questions for all of us. First of all, let me see what's on the last slide, the summary of changes. So Marty, if you just leave up the summary of changes, that's what we're dealing with. But the Oregon Constitution has a quirky provision that all corrections facilities must be located in the state capital, which means that a community with 7% of the population, in theory, has 100% of those who are incarcerated by the state of Oregon. It's actually 62%. And now, at least now, people who are being released are released to the community of conviction, and they're doing it, trying to get people training and the ability to get to jobs and housing, so the recidivism rate drops and these people have a good chance at life in the future. But we have started teaching in correctional facilities. We can't monetize it at this time, it's new, but we feel like we're going to be able to monetize that too. And that's the kind of change, because what we've noticed is some people have self-selected their way out of walking through our doors. Last thing is we're teaching now at the Salem Senior Center, which is called Center 50 Plus, another way to be valuable to local governments. We want enough value, and we hope that 29 years of value is going to help us in this shift to monetization, that we can secure our anchor funders, and that we can find a way to serve our community and keep things going.
Thanks a lot. So questions for Steve, Marty, or Alan? What tweaked your brain that you want to dive into a little bit more deeply? Go.
You know, I've got actually a question for each of you. I'll kind of like plop it all into one set of questions. First thing, Steve, I really appreciate you talking about the sort of the slow strangling death of news in communities, the hollowing out of local media. I think that's a challenge that we all have to step up to in one way, shape, or form. And there's a huge opportunity there, particularly in the nonprofit economy for us to be able to step forward in a way that a for-profit operation couldn't or wouldn't, because the markets don't make any sense at the local level. So I mean, in some ways, to be able to take advantage of that opportunity, to be thinking against scale, which is the very thing that, you know, Marty, you know this from for-profit media production. You always think about going to bigger markets, scaling up, right? And that's the very thing that ignores communities across the country. So I think that's sort of a framework we have to be thinking about. The thing that I'm not hearing from all of you, that I'm kind of curious about, is viewer membership models. You mentioned Patreon just very, very briefly, Mark. But I think that's a huge area of untapped relationship that we just simply don't capitalize on. And it's one of the key areas that nonprofit journalism organizations are thinking about pretty systematically. And perhaps it's a little bit like the public radio model that we have across the country. But the challenges that you're talking about in terms of aging demographics are very much the challenges that public television has. Where like the average viewer in public television is 72 years old. The average is 72. Just to be clear. So, I mean, I just want to kind of ask you a little bit about, like, you know, programming philosophy and relationship with viewers, because I think that's a huge gaping hole that we have historically. But I think it's where the field of play lies as we're building revenue, we're building relationship and the like. And the last thing I was going to ask you guys about, just kind of throw something crazy out to you, is programming philosophy and interaction, how that plays into what we need to be thinking about. I look at the growth of Fortnite, right? Like everybody in the world is on Fortnite, right? Why is that?
Guys?
Is there a local Fortnite? What can we do to light a fire in the minds of our viewers that makes people crazy for interaction through you? So it's a lot there, but I just want to kind of.
And at this time, I want to announce that Metro East is going public. The IPO is going to be at $300 a share. And, you know, we're no longer a nonprofit. We're funding half of the state of Oregon. I wish.
Marty, I'll have my budget request in tomorrow.
I think watchability is massive. I think that, you know, when I met you the very first time in Boston, I said to you at the party, you know, I got there early, you happened to be there. You said, how can I help you? I said, I want to know where the rules are, and I want to get within a centimeter of it. And I want to understand what the rules are and then what the rules are. Because what I quickly learned about this industry is that there's all these supposed rules that aren't really rules. And people, it's just because you've done it so long one way, it's like calcified into you. And you've got to bust that apart. And I think being a Hollywood guy, you know, there's nothing wrong with having a program philosophy. We don't have that yet. I haven't been able to get onto that mountain because we have so many other pressing problems. But in the next year, watchability and a philosophy of programming and using the things that are really performing well and putting them together to get people attracted to it, to do over the top, to be more multimedia focused, because we had a radio station, that's another long story, and now we've helped another radio station that's being really successful. They're using our translator. So how to bring all of that together into like what I call a content constellation is where I want to go, but I'm just not there yet. But we have to stop this whole thing about, you know, we're not going to tell our producers what to make. We're not going to censor. We're never going to do that. But there's absolutely nothing wrong with cherry picking your best content from your staff, from the outside world, and from your producers, and bundling it together. I think Next TV, what the guys at MNN are doing, Greg Sutton, if you haven't looked at nyxt.nyc, you've got to look at that. I've been begging to be the first franchise of that outside of New York, and I hopefully will be the first one. Tried to get Alan and Justin to join me, but they got busy with other stuff. And we hope to show that in Portland this summer. In addition to this web app, I want to show you some really advanced ways that we can make our channels more watchable. And folks like Jesse and other people here from Teleview are working to help make it possible so really small stations can get in on this with a very low barrier to entry, because like Steve said, the cost of this stuff is going down.
So I want to speak a little bit also to develop. We take a wide view of our charge as a PEG nonprofit, which we never call PEG, community media. But we develop programming intentionally for audience, and we're continuing to develop programming. We have a $215,000 grant out for our transmission equipment for broadcast radio. And we're meeting with people also, not only finding out what they want on radio and what they want from us as we assess the needs of our community, but we're also checking out what would happen, these people as potential funders. I'll just say that the last potential funder that we met with, his wife asked the best question ever, so why would I listen to your radio station? And that's one you got to be able to answer, and we did. But then I said to him, we may need to raise $200,000 in a hurry. And Craig said, we just get 4 people to write $50,000 checks each. And I said, will you help? Because he knows by the way, the ratio now on millionaires to population is such that I think Salem actually now with our population should have something like 60 millionaires, which seems like an unbelievable number, but it should actually have about that many. So it's getting to know people who are with you. Craig loves, this guy, funder, loves what we're doing with nonprofits. He loves our work, and working with him, we want to get to people so where we not only can have a membership and sponsors, but we can have a donor base and a large donor base, and that we can move that across all of our media platforms.
Other questions? Okay. Oh, yeah, go for it.
Courtney Fraser from TV Santa Barbara. So as we talk about growth and expanding, yes, hello, thank you for coming and visiting. As we talk about growth and expanding and diversifying our programs and hitting those fads, are any of you podcasting, or are we doing any, or I just haven't heard a lot of it, and that's something that we really want to dive into for 2019.
She asked about podcasting in case the people in the back didn't hear.
So we are just finishing our first podcasting camp. Again, we use some of that money from the Collins Foundation to fund this because we have a recording studio in that place. We teamed up with one of the schools, and these really cool, like tiny tweens have been like invading the space. But we've been teaching most of it at their school, and then the last week, their interviews with people that work for the city, their interviews were recorded at our pop-up site. And so we're doing podcasting as a curriculum now. We had hoped to do it earlier, but we lost our partner, and so we just launched it this month. So it's pretty cool. If you go to our Facebook page, there's a sample. It's really cool to hear little squeaky voices.
There's a question over here, I thought.
Yeah, I'm Kim Mills, I'm on the board of Access Sacramento. I was wondering what the process and the price point would be to get your station on the Roku and Apple TV.
So it's free if you have what we call our Reflect service, which is our reflection service. So if you're using that, we don't charge anything extra to get you on Roku and Apple TV.
And we can probably take one more question, then we have to pull the walls. Okay, I think, thank you very much, guys. And one of the things that I want to, as you look at your program and the workshops for the next 2 days, what you're going to see is threads of a lot of taking a deeper dive into a lot of the things that they touched on, like digital equity and media equity, like diversifying funding, like today's field production toolkit. We've tried to kind of thread this whole thing out into all the various workshops. So enjoy, and we'll see you all at lunch.